Recently, I've been thinking that more games should break their own rules. A lot of video games have the problem of ruining their very own established rules, like how Reboot Lara Croft is supposed to be a naive, inexperienced adventurer, but in gameplay she's a bona fide killing machine, never ending a Tomb Raider game with a death toll under 1,000. Lightsabers are drastically weakened for the sake of balance in Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, and Dark Souls 2 allows you to increase iframes, trivializing what is arguably the most important part of learning the Souls games. But that's not what I'm talking about. We can go all day with examples of games that betray their world building or their most fundamental ideas, but how about when it's for the better? Recently, I was doing my near annual revisit of Dying Light when this video idea was beamed into my head. Dying Light is a zombie game you may be familiar with at this point, maybe because I won't stop bringing it up. The game has a very heavy emphasis on parkour and refining your movement, and more than anything, Dying Light wants you to embrace the freedom it gives you in the sandbox it provides to find creative, interesting ways to move through its varied environments while dodging and outrunning hordes of the undead, and the occasional human. But the game proudly breaks this illusion twice, the first time only slightly, with the second time completely flipping the game on its head. But that first example, however exciting it may be, will be wildly expected for a game like this. Dying Light's grappling hook is unlocked about halfway through the game, depending on how active you are in its world. The hook itself is incredibly unrealistic and will permanently change how you interact with the game, albeit in a less interesting way. Although you can use it to complement the game's well thought out movement system, you may be quick to realize that the grappling hook is even more effective at supplementing that system. The freedom and skill set you provided begins as a defensive or evasive tool, but inevitably it becomes an offensive one as you progress with skills like the dropkick and slam. Getting stronger and faster feels good, especially when the results are so tangible, but the fear of being outnumbered and overpowered is part of what makes the early game so exciting. The grappling hook is the final nail in the coffin when it comes to erasing that fear, as it allows you to zip straight to any point at any time, with quite the range too. Assuming the game rule here is to use movement creatively to get from point A to B while dodging and outsmarting enemies, this entirely ignores that. It turns your average path from something like this into a straight line. If you're boring, you could argue this is a net negative, but despite the problems it creates for the game, I'll never say no to a solid grappling hook. The stranger example comes in Dying Light's excellent DLC, the following. Let's play a quick game, shall we? What would be the logical next step in an expansion for Dying Light? You already have two very different city maps, a grapple hook, so what would you add? Here's 4 options. Choose wisely, hold one in your mind for a second. If you chose the wingsuit, you would be incorrect. Actually, that's kind of already in the game, but if you chose any of them, actually you'd be incorrect. The following takes players out of its 2 urban settings and instead drops them into the vast Tehran countryside, for story reasons, of course. But obviously there's no tall buildings and strings of rooftops out here, so we need something new. Enter the dune buggy. If the countryside was the question, the dune buggy is the answer, and you best believe that it's a fucking detailed one too. Your brand new car is not only the best way to get around, it's now your primary objective, your strongest weapon, your new home, and America's favorite pastime. This thing is awesome. I have no clue how they settled on this as the natural direction for the game, but it couldn't work any better. You'll still be parkouring for sure, there's still buildings peppered around the countryside, a nice coastal town, as well as some more thematically appropriate structures like a huge seed mill. However, the car is definitely the mechanical focus of the DLC. You can fully upgrade each of its pieces like the engine, traction, chassis, stuff like that. You can also fix on some gadgets and custom things like bobbleheads or ornaments and the car's paint job. This isn't just shoehorned in, it's a fully developed, fully realized addition that properly compensates for how the following just upends the status quo. We throw around the phrase game-changing a lot, and I think it's starting to lose its meaning a bit. Dying Light might not be a genre-defining game, and I can recognize that I definitely have a soft spot for it, but the following DLC outright redefines what Dying Light is. It will undeniably alter how you play it, interact with it, move through it, and it's a huge reason why I come back so often. Dying Light is far from the only game to break its own rules, so to speak, and it definitely isn't the most popular. Windowkill is a 2024 roguelike that should not even exist. I probably won't talk about this game again on the channel, so let me just break it down for you. The gameplay is very simple. It's a twin-stick shooter, so you can pretty much just move and attack. Each unlockable character has a different attack, an unlockable ability, and upgrades you can purchase using currency from killed enemies. However, the window that you play the game in is constantly shrinking. To combat this, you'll have to attack the border of the arena to expand your play space while you also fight off enemies, but there's a little bit more to it than that. See, Windowkill, in some ways, actually breaks the rules of how Microsoft Windows is supposed to function, at least to my very limited knowledge. Multiple windows will spawn outside of your own play space, enemies will spawn out of view, projectiles can be shot from one window through a space that sort of doesn't even exist and appear in your window. Some enemies will also prevent you from expanding the arena, making your view even more limited and in turn the game a lot harder. It's a wonderfully simple concept, and you might not find it that interesting, but it's such a fascinating creation to me. The way the game is able to control, communicate, and combine everything happening in each window, and on top of that, actually make it flow so smoothly, is just an insane achievement. And while the game certainly defies the limits of the operating system it's based on, the final boss also inverts its own rules. While we're here, big thanks to Systemic Machine for suggesting this one. Windowkill has a couple of really cool secrets, with the final boss fight being the most applicable here. Defeating various bosses will drop skill points, which you can use to get new abilities during the run in the form of course, new windows. By arranging these in a very specific way, you can escape the arena, inverting the play space. Busting your way out turns your entire screen into movable space, but the window you came out of is now your weapon. This fight replaces your character's regular attack with a chargeable orb that will propel the window when hit. However, the boss can launch it back. This twisted game of Pong might be your only way to damage the boss, but his options are a bit less limited. While knocking the window back at you, he's capable of morphing your desktop into his own personal bullet hell. This whole fight flips the game on its head in a very obvious way. As it's driven by the mechanic of a constantly shrinking arena, Windowkill forces you to pay attention to a lot of different things at once. However, changing this for the fight has the unfortunate side effect of also making it pretty easy. There's generally less to focus on, you only have one enemy to fight, and his projectile patterns are rather simple to dodge. Despite the difficulty drop-off, it's a good shake-up anyways, and it's wholly unexpected after being confined to a black box on your home screen for 20 minutes.
Oh, hey there, what's up? Now, most games don't have a total inversion of their main gameplay, and not even as the final boss. And you know what? I don't think they should. When we come across stuff like this, ideas that completely change a game, it's special because we don't see it often. There are a couple of good small examples though. Unlike the big entries from Dying Light and Windowkill, there's only a small focus on Elden Ring's deflecting hard tier, in addition to the wondrous physics flask that transforms the combat into that other game they made. What was it called? By applying this tier to your consumable flask, you can briefly deflect attacks just like Wolf, contorting Elden Ring's fights in ways they weren't really meant to be. Now, it's no Souls-like from the late great From Software, but Inscription changes its theme completely several times and continuously piles on additional mechanics at key points throughout, playing around with subgenres in ways that few games do. Rounds instead hands you the rules, which instead allows you to dictate the way your weapon works. This is surprisingly unrestrictive, especially with mods, as joining these rules makes your silly little gun react in ways you couldn't possibly predict.
Okay, maybe that was a random thing. Nope, it's not. Okay, what the fuck? What happened?
What changed?
In fact, like rounds, just about any game with compounding items or buffs can be broken in a myriad of ways. Like in Risk of Rain 2, where the very fabric of reality will shatter under the pressure of 50 energy drinks. And lastly, I want to talk about Shahrazad. Now, Shahrazad is a card in Magic the Gathering that, when played, forces the players to play a sub-game of Magic using their library, which is essentially their draw pile. When one player wins that sub-game, they lose half their life, which is huge.
I have to leave for work in just a moment, but I'm editing and I was doing a little bit of research, and apparently someone can play Shahrazad in one of these sub-games, and you can just keep adding on sub-games to the sub-game. So while you're in the middle of one game of Magic, you can be playing like fucking 30 games of Magic at the same time. Or maybe there's a limit on it. I don't know. I didn't get that deep, but I just thought that was ridiculous.
This card is completely banned in competitive play, and rightfully so, I think. Can you imagine this in any other game? It would be like if they added a character to Marvel Rivals, where when you get hit with their ult, it just auto-queues you for another game with the guy that hit you. Give me a Dead by Daylight perk that I can activate, that when the killer hits me, it puts me into a custom game where I'm the killer and they're the survivor, and then if I win, they die and we all get to leave peacefully. And yeah, this whole, oh, let me just start a second game to play instead at the same time is horrible. I mean, terrible, horrible fucking idea, and I don't know how it got made in the first place, but it would be so funny if it was in like everything. Come on. It would be like if League of Legends created a character that could force you into a 1v1 pocket dimension in the middle of a team fight. Wait a sec. Not every game needs to break its own rules. Too many could water down the experience, but on the other hand, it's always a really fun surprise. So yeah, maybe we do need more games that think outside the blocks, windows, and chariot dungeons. A bombastic upgrade or hidden feature is the perfect way to make a player feel like they're in control, like they're in charge of their own power fantasy, which really is what video games are all about. If you enjoy the video, feel free to drop a like and definitely subscribe for more videos like this, not like this. I don't know. I do different stuff, but whatever. If any other games come to mind that break the rules, so to speak, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to play more that pull it off effectively. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. As always, thank you so much for watching and for sticking around, especially if you're still here. Have a wonderful night, and I'll catch you in the next one.